All right, everyone, welcome to the speaker's presentation for Southwest Writers tonight. And our speaker is Dan Klefstsad. He is a longtime radio host on NPR's station WNIJ. And he has a novel out called Fiona's Guardians. It's about humans who work with a beautiful vampire. So if that covers all kinds of genre in there. It was adapted by the Artist Ensemble Theater for their podcast. And this October, Fiona's Guardians will be released in a hardback edition with new chapters. So, and with this, I am going to turn everything over to Dan, who is going to talk about DIY book promotion, which is something we could all use. So take it away, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to authors all the time. I encounter authors at various meetings like this, also at author fairs and other events where they struggle. They tell me how they struggle to get their book out there and get it into readers' hands and just create awareness of the fact that they are an author, a published author. And so I thought, gosh, what can I do to kind of help others, promote their books? And this is based just on my experience, my 2-year campaign to promote Fiona's Guardians and create awareness about that. And so I want to help you make your book stand out. So you could pay for marketing services. I think at the very beginning, as I jumped onto this meeting, I talked to someone who is a professional book marketer and was going to charge me $8,000 to lead a 3-month campaign for my book. I don't know about you, but I don't have $8,000 to spare for marketing. And I don't even like to pay for Facebook boosts, which are not that expensive, but I don't like to get into the habit of Facebook expecting me to pay them every time I want to promote something. So I just want to do this for free. And I think you can do this very successfully without spending any money. So, and I also wanted I wanted to tell that person who was going to charge me $8,000, I'm an author. We're supposed to be poor, at least, so I kind of wanted to just let that out there. Everybody who's a writer should not have to spend money to promote themselves. There are so many free ways to do it, and I'll tell you what I know. So how do you get your book into readers' hands without spending money? Well, let me first tell you about a little bit who I am. You mentioned I'm a morning edition host and newscaster at NPR station WNIJ. I am published by a small traditional press in the United Kingdom. And I also got my novel adapted once and now a second time. I'll tell you about that later. So who will benefit from this talk? If you are a small press author, you will get a lot out of this, I think. Self-published authors will also get something out of this. Even those who are published by the Big Five, or I guess it's going to be the Big Four soon, we hear. If you're published by Random House, Penguin Random House, for example, you are a new author and you're just at the bottom of the heap when it comes to their promotional budget. They're going to spend money promoting the authors they know will make them money. So, pick a famous author. That's the person they're going to spend their promotional budget on. You're going to have to prove yourself as a successful author, as a successful marketer of your work. So even if you're published by the Big Five, you're going to get something out of this, I think. A good place to start with is to think about your book and your goal for that. How many readers are you really, really going for? How would you like to see your book adapted, if possible? So kind of consider that and make this something that you refer to all the time. Keep your eye on your goal for your book. For me, I do have ambitions to see my novel turned into a film or a streaming series. Yes, it's a pie. It's a pie in the sky kind of dream. It's one I think most of us share. But if that is your goal, then you'll get something out of this. Even if you're just trying to get hundreds or maybe thousands of readers, that's great. And I can help you do that with the advice that I can give you here. So what do you need to launch your free marketing campaign? You're going to need a book that represents you at your best. So if you've written a book that you know is good, it represents you at your best at this stage in your writing journey, then you're already there. You're already halfway there. you're going to need friends and followers. So it's obvious since I wrote a vampire novel, so it's kind of obvious that I'm going to go into places like Facebook, and then within Facebook there are these groups for Dracula fans, vampire fans, people who are love Gothic art and lifestyles and kind of stuff. And I'm going to go in and I friended these people, as many of these people as the Facebook algorithms would allow me to do, and then I started of just conversational relationships with these people, and slowly let them know that I have a vampire novel that they might be interested in. You're going to need great reviews, fantastic reviews, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. And if the Southwest Writers has a review corps, that is something else that you might want to take advantage of. I know there's one at the Chicago Writers Association. I took advantage of that. I'm a member of the Chicago Writers, and they have a pretty sizable core of reviewers who review members and even non-members. It's really important to get your book in independent bookstores. It's hard enough to get into Barnes and Noble. We all know that. But independent bookstores, surprisingly, are potentially fertile ground for you if you spend time reaching out to them. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. And of course, you're going to need time. You're going to need to spend a lot of time, and you're going to have to carefully budget how you're going to spend your time. And you may find yourself wondering, should I write the next book? Should I begin writing the next book? Or should I spend time promoting the book that I already know has potential? These are things you're going to have to weigh. And we can talk about that a little bit more as we go through. So let's start with a book that represents you at your best. You can't market a book that you are not 100% sure, that you don't believe in yourself. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And of course, you can't market something that readers don't love. So I already mentioned finding your people on social. By your people, I mean those most likely to connect with your book. And so, again, I mentioned the Facebook of Dracula groups, vampire and goth groups. Getting the reviews. There are a lot of places where you can get excellent reviews. And you might want to start with genre magazines. There are genre zines or paper magazines devoted to every genre out there, whether it's romance, whether it's sci-fi, mystery, horror. Also, I would encourage you to find book bloggers, those who read in your genre. These are people who can really help you with extending your reach and finding other readers. So your book is coming out at a certain point. You've written it, you've got an agreement with a publisher, and you have a release date. So pitch reviewers as soon as you have an advanced reading copy. And then also ask if your Writers Association has a review corps. I was lucky enough to get 2 reviews that I share a lot. This is not the only reviews I have, but they're the most high profile ones. I mentioned the Chicago Writers Association. They gave me a review about a month before release day. It was an excellent write-up, and I was really thrilled with that, and I share that everywhere. Also, a genre magazine specializing in Gothic horror, The Dark Sire, gave me 5 out of 5 skulls just this past March. And so I've been sharing that as well. Okay, there are ways to get reviews, and there's some, but I think some reviews may not have as much a punch or value to a reader, a potential book buyer. And we all have done this before, authors trading reviews. Hey, if you give me your e-copy of your book, I'll send you my PDF of my book, and we'll review each other. And the expectation, of course, is that we'll give each other 5 stars, right? 5 out of 5 stars, and that's fine. These kind of reviews do build your portfolio, and that is helpful, especially if you want to have these reviews populate your Goodreads page. But I would encourage you to at least disclose that the author is a friend of yours, and certainly that the author gave you a free copy, just so that you're doing a service for your potential reader. Just be as honest as you can with that. I do have an opinion about paid reviews. You probably are very aware of services out there where the review service will charge a fee to give you a review, an honest review. They're going to, they purport to have a very up and up kind of program where they will give you an honest review for the fee. However, I have an opinion about this that I gather is somewhat unpopular. And that is, I think this is a conflict of interest. And, some of the review services out there that charge. And I understand everybody has a right to make a buck, but I don't believe that this serves the reader. It certainly helps the writer get out there, and the reviewer gets paid. But I just feel it's a conflict of interest. I would feel better about it and change my mind about it if the reviewer who's charging a fee discloses in the review that they were paid. So that's something to think about. And if you want to help end this practice of paid reviews, I would say just pitch only reviewers who don't charge a fee or who disclose again in the review. We can talk about that later during the questions. But there's a group of reviewers out there I'd like you to pay attention to who have high ethical standards. Book bloggers, people who love books and they love authors and they love interacting with authors. They love them so much that they will, if they like your book, they will shout your name from the rooftops. And it's really important, I think, to develop relations with these book bloggers who, by the way, disclose that when they receive a free copy from the author. So one of the reviewers who reviewed my novel on publication day, Julie, at A Little Book Problem, she's located in the UK. Feel free to pitch her if you take a look at her review guidelines and the genres that she reviews. Take a look also, see if she's currently accepting reviews. She's worth pitching. She's one of several I've worked with that I'll give you their names later. So she disclosed here, happy publication day, and then she said, many thanks for the digital copy of your book, which I have reviewed impartially. And this is right at the top of her review, that she got a free copy. She's going to give an honest review, and then you read the body of her review. I think that this is very, these people are worthy of supporting, and they will support you as well. I've found that several of these book bloggers are networked, especially the ones, there's a group of these in the UK and Ireland and some in Canada and the US, where they will each share, they'll share each other's reviews. So if reviewer A publishes a review on their blog, reviewers B through Z will then share that on their website and share it with their email list, and then share out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. And some of these book bloggers have Twitter followers numbering, well over 10,000, sometimes well over 50,000. So it would be great exposure for you to find these people. One of them is Chat About Books. Now, at some point, these book bloggers I've mentioned who do not charge a fee will, for additional services, charge a fee if they're part of a blog tour, or they sometimes offer promotional services. But at this level, just a simple review, many of them will not charge. And I think that this is an incredible resource for you, and I would encourage you to develop relationships with some of them. So who are some of the ones that I've worked with? Chat About Books is one. I mentioned A Little Book Problem. There's a reviewer in Ireland, County Cork, I think, called Swirl and Thread. I like reading her reviews as well. She doesn't review in my genre, but I like reading her anyway. And in the state of Georgia, Jessica's Reading Room is another one I like. I've worked with Jessica before. She's been very, very kind to me as well. So once you have excellent reviews, you are well on your way to finding readers. So you can share them on social media, and this is especially great if these are verified purchases. And Amazon has I think it's called Amazon Vine, where they have recognized reviewers for them, and many of these are book bloggers, and they will put their review on Amazon as well. So the next step for you then, once you have these good reviews, is you take them to bookstores. I have spent many, many, many hours, and I have a day job, by the way, morning radio, but I've spent a huge amount of time since June of 2021 writing to bookstores. I have sent thousands, and I mean thousands of emails to bookstores, and I have written them again. I'll wait a few months to write them again. Sometimes it's a few weeks. And so each bookstore, literally every bookstore in the United States that handles new books, general interest, has received an email from me or a Facebook message probably a dozen times since June of 2021. There's a resource out there called New Pages. Perhaps you've heard of it. Newpages.com. Among other things, they have lists of publishers and everything, but they also have a comprehensive list of independent bookstores categorized by state. So in Illinois, I started in the Chicago area, Northern Illinois, and then I worked throughout the state. Then I branched out throughout the Midwest. Then I started writing in the Mountain West, Northeast, South, etc. I also pitched numerous bookstores in the UK and Ireland. Since my publisher's in the UK, I figured it would be a great idea. And I'm in, as of this moment, I believe I'm in 27 bookstores, including that includes 5 in the UK. And that's a lot. However, they're being realistic here. Of the hours I've spent and the many thousands of emails I've sent out, I probably have a success rate of 0.001%. Okay? But that doesn't matter, because when I get a hit, chances are I'm going to have something I can really, really share on social media. I mentioned that bookstore people are so important because they're passionate about books, and if they accept yours, they will champion it. So it's really important if you are able to get through the door. And then once you get a hit, someone says, sounds interesting. That was a really good review you shared. Okay, I'm going to order half a dozen copies of your book, or maybe just 3. And then what you do is ask them, hey, can I have a picture or a couple of pictures of you or another staffer holding my, so I can share on, all the social media platforms, say Facebook, Instagram, etc. And these are social media gold. You will get a lot of engagement from. There's nothing that tells a reader, a potential book buyer, that your book really is important, it really matters and should be read, than a picture of a bookseller holding your book. Share those across the universe, because you will get a lot of engagement, and that's a great way to show people out there that you're serious, that people are taking your book serious. And bookstore people, they're kind of authorities in our business, aren't they? So now, bonus points. If you can get a picture with bookstore cats, okay? And I'll show you a couple in a moment. There's a hashtag called bookstore cats on Twitter, on Facebook, I believe Instagram as well. And these result in boffo engagement on social media. So here are some of the most popular pics that I've published of authors holding my books. This is Fiona, indeed that is her name, owner of the Whitby bookshop in North Yorkshire, England. Whitby is kind of Dracula Central, of course, in the novel. You remember that's the town where the fishing village where Dracula enters England. And so Fiona, I like what she did here. This is kind of rare stuff here. If you're able to get this, it's just something you just have to share over and over again. She actually dressed up in the same colors of the paperback cover there, which was really cool. I think she finally answered me on my 5th round of emails, and she said, "Okay, I'm willing to take your book." And so she ordered, I think, 10 copies, and there I am, right below Dracula on the shelf. It's pretty cool. And then she sent me another one, which also gets a lot of engagement. She was a bit bitey that day. Here she is, Fiona, snacking on her inventory. People love that pic. If you get something like this, just, send it everywhere. Okay, you may remember, anybody here watch Stephen Colbert? back, he has this little thing, a little feature called the Colbert Bump, when he gives them small independent business, a shout out on his show. In February of 2021, a small bookstore in the North Carolina mountains, Foggy Pine Books, got the Colbert Bump. And so I reached out to them because that's how I heard about them. And I said, hey, I've got this vampire novel. What do you think? He said, yeah, we have people, this guy Dion here said, yeah, we have a lot of vampire fans that come to the store. You got a good review. Okay, I'm going to order some copies. It doesn't happen often. You're not going to get a lot of responses like this. It's going to be 1 in a million, perhaps, but you get a cool picture of a bookstore here. You can't see him smiling, but you get the idea. And I mentioned those bookstore cats. Literally, nothing beats bookstore cats. And so here is a picture sent by From My Shelf Books in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, of the feline booksellers. That's Finn on the left and Huck on the right. And there's also a hashtag called Catterday, or Happy Catterday, for Saturday. And so you can, share something like this on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and it gets a lot of engagement. People really, really reacted to this photo. A few weeks later, the bookseller very kindly, because remember, these are very busy people, he sent me another one of Huck and Finn. You can't go wrong with this. If you're able to get something like this, make it a priority, and you will, if you're patient, get something like this in return. There's a thing about time here that I guess I'd like to mention. During the year after I published Fiona's Guardians, I hardly wrote fiction. In fact, it was only this past summer when I started seriously writing the sequel to the book. I did write some essays, nonfiction articles and stuff, which is easier for me, might be different for you, but writing fiction for me is a much deeper dive, and it just takes too long, and it takes too much of my energy and time. But that's fine, because I thought, if I want the sequel to be anywhere as good as the original, I need to let it marinate. I need to really just set that book down and let it sit and stew for a while. And that was fine, because that's when I spent all of my time during that first year, just marketing, writing to bookstores, trying to get the photos that you saw. And I've got a lot of them on my Pinterest and page and whatever. I've got just a ton of these photos that I can share over and over again. I just recently, I cycle through over the time, and there's always going to be a bunch of new people who see those. So I think the question I think I'd like you to consider is, how much time should I spend marketing as opposed to writing your next book, whatever you do, with maybe you're a writing teacher, something like this. You need to think about that and make it work for you. But I believe if you spend as much time, or spend a lot of time, writing the bookstores, pitching reviewers, and of course sharing, news about your book, interviews, etc. It's going to be worth your time, and you're going to get results. But again, how much time should you spend? It depends on your goal for your book. How many readers do you want? How many people who like to adapt books? How many of those do you want to have pay attention to you? Something else you're going to need: interviews, whether it's TV, radio, podcast, newspaper interview, etc. You're going to need a lot of these. And of course, they're good to share as well. So how do you go about it? You have to, of course, pitch everybody. I spend a lot of time pitching, again, every bit of media. So if I'm doing a reading event in a community outside of my own community, I will look up the local media, the radio stations, etc., and I will try to get an interview with them, or at least some sort of, just have them do a little write-up in the paper. That's fine, letting them know that I'm coming to read somewhere. But again, that takes time. It takes research. You're going to have to figure out where, what local media is available, and write a compelling pitch to them. But if you book the interview, and I hope you do, it's important to show up on time. It's just a couple of things you need to remember. One of the more important things is also to know just the answer to basic questions like what inspired your book. Expect that question because very likely the journalist who books the interview these days, they're stressed. They barely have time to cover, city council or school board. But if something's coming up, there's like a news hook for your book, like maybe you're coming to town, maybe you wrote a romance novel and we're coming up on, I don't know the date here, but I'm sure there's an International Romance Day. Okay, then that's a news hook for them. But yes, be prepared to answer these basic questions. If it's an audio or visual medium, they may ask you to read an excerpt. That's great. But of course, you want to make sure that you deliver it as flawlessly as possible. So rehearse. And I rehearse an excerpt. If I read it, I'll rehearse 3 or 4 times, just that day before the interview. Make sure you can really deliver it and make it as compelling as possible, because that is one of the greatest opportunities you have to get people who are on the fence about your book to actually buy it and they hear it in your words. Now the question of adaptation. If you think you can get it adapted, and it may be easier than you think, it's worth exploring. There are theater companies in your area, I'm sure. Professional, semi-professional, community theater. Many of them have podcasts. They started these during the pandemic when the theaters, of course, went dark because everything shut down. Yeah. So a lot of them started podcasts. And there is one based in Rockford, Illinois, Artists Ensemble Theater. And they are an all-professional theater organization that started a podcast called Mysterious Journey. And it is like an old-fashioned radio drama. It features professional actors with narration and dialogue. It features sound effects, cleverly mixed in, and music cleverly mixed in. And I pitched them, and they liked the idea of a vampire story around Halloween. I think I pitched them in midsummer, and they got back to me and said, okay, we'll try this. We're going to write a script. 2 weeks later, I got the script from them. They did a beautiful job adapting it took 3 chapters of my book and made it a complete arc, a story arc. Had to change a couple little things for the purposes of the podcast. I thought that's great. That's fine, because the end result was fantastic. And so where you can find it, the Mysterious Journey podcast episode, it's free. It's available on Spotify, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. And they had a little graphic here, and from the novel by, and then you see your name like that. That is something I would encourage you to go for, because I'm not special. Okay, I wrote a good book that's got good reviews. I'm sure everybody in this Zoom call can do the same thing. And if you know who to go to, if you know of a theater company near you, make a good pitch, and you might be surprised because they're out there looking to try something new, and sometimes they get grants for that kind of thing. So something to think about. I would encourage you to. This is a big dream, but I tried to write a screenplay for my book based on my novel. It's not good. I'm not a good screenplay writer. I'm a beginner. Okay, so I tried. This is a little something from the title page, and I don't expect that's going to go anywhere. However, something else happened recently, within the last month. A guy named Stuart Wallen, you can find him on IMDb. He lives in Rockford, Illinois. He is an award-winning screenwriter and director. And 30 years ago, I wrote a review for a small newspaper about a band he was in, and I gave the band a good review. And so he wrote back recently. He said, I've been seeing a lot about your book. And he just Facebook messaged me. This is very, very, very casual. And I think I could do something with this. I'd like a crack at making a short film about your book, based on your book. I said, okay, I didn't really think of anything. It's not going to happen. Well, 2 weeks later, I got a 25-page screenplay from him based on my book. And I thought, okay. And I read it, and it was really good. And now we are going to make a film. We're going to shoot mostly in Rockford using some local talent, regional talent. And casting is open. We've already announced a casting call within the last 10 days or so. And we're getting a lot of response, including from a couple of the professional actors who appeared in the Fiona's Guardians podcast last year. So I guess my point is everybody can get adapted in some way or some form or another. All you have to do is constantly keep yourself out there. Share good news about your book, whether it's a review or an interview or something. And the more you have to share, the more people will pay attention, and the more people who adapt books will notice you, and they'll begin to take you seriously. Because if they're going to go through the work and expense of taking your book, creating a screenplay based on it, and then trying to raise money to do a podcast or a film, they need to know that you're going to be able to promote that. So so what you're doing now or leading up to this moment is going to be incredibly important, because they'll be watching. If they see you out there, well, there's an opportunity for you. So it's all about making something happen, and then making the next thing happen. Again, if you want success to breed success, you really have to invest a lot of time. And doing the things that I suggested, you probably have other ideas about how to spend your time and to get similar results. And I would love to hear from them during the Q&A if you've got other things that you're trying that are working for you. I might actually take some notes and crib what you're doing. It's all about making the next thing happen, and pushing your content out there as far as possible. So that's the end of my my prepared PowerPoint, but I would love to take your questions.